Our story begins with a bright red tomato in hand as a voice notes the fruit's vibrant color. Before everything else, a tomato is a fruit. Go argue with the wall. But the voice says this tomato is a bit too sour, which is why he plans to add a little sweetness next time. And there we have it, a voice calling out to him. Isagi-sama, a beastman cat maid with a basket of tomatoes appears, telling Isagi that the villagers are waiting for him. Now that she mentioned it, Isagi finally remembers. With a determined look, the hero of our story, Isagi, vows to save this village using alchemy. But before we get to the good part, let's first talk about that one event that led to Isagi at the Beastman village. Flashback to more than a month ago at the Remris castle in the Remris Empire. Isagi is suddenly summoned by the head of the alchemy department. The older man didn't beat around the bush and flat out told Isagi that he's getting socked as the castle's royal alchemist. Like many good employees, of course, Isagi had to ask, why? He's been nothing but good. Heck, he's even great at his job as their alchemist. Well, in the older man's eyes, the royal alchemist's job is to make magical tools for the army, something Isagi is not doing. This older man, Garius, the head of the castle's national alchemy department, even went as far as to say that our hero does nothing but play with soil all day. Isagi defends his work and tells him that he's not playing. Just take a look at this. He takes a small bag out of his pocket, explaining that he's using alchemy to improve the quality of their crops. With his alchemy, he can create crops that can survive extreme weather conditions. Huh? Crops? Garius is far from impressed. Besides, he counters that if they need more food, then they can just invade another country and take their food, which is a way more effective plan in the eyes of this old fart. Ah, what a crappy mindset. Isagi hates it, but what can he do? Remris is a militaristic nation after all, and thanks to its multiple conquests it has expanded into an enormous empire. As a result, the majority of the nation's finances are funneled to the army. This poor choice and irresponsible policy are just making their people suffer. Isagi once thought that he could save this nation by solving the food shortage using alchemy, but there's only so much he can do if the higher-ups have other priorities in mind. Now then, back to his dismissal. Garius points out that Isagi ignores his responsibilities and continues farming crops in the castle without permission. As such, it's only natural for our hero to get fired, based on these points alone. How can this be? Isagi completed all the tasks given to him, and yet here they are, looking down on him just because he's a commoner who came from the orphanage. Despite this setback, our hero stands his ground, vowing to do the right thing. Alchemy is not just a weapon, it can also be used to bring happiness to people. But Garius had already decided, and with one last dirty look, he tells Isagi that an alchemist's job is to shut up and follow his orders. What a jerk. Isagi can only glare at how bad this old fart treats alchemists. It's like he sees them like they're nothing but tools. Despite the harsh treatment, Isagi kept a level head and gracefully accepted his dismissal. He makes his way back to his workshop with heavy footsteps, and as soon as he walks through the front door, the beastman cat maid Melsia welcomes him in good spirits. She asks the alchemist what his plans for the day are, but Isagi's shocked that she's even here this early. You see, Melsia is a royal maid who helps out at his workshop during her spare time. Here they do their research together to create crops that can survive extreme conditions. But Isagi's not feeling motivated to do any of that now, as he slumps into his chair with an exasperated sigh. Melia asks if there's something wrong. She can't help but worry since Isagi doesn't look too good, so our hero lays it out on her. Cut to the next scene, the whole workshop shook at how loud Melsia's voice is. To say the beastman cat maid is fuming is an understatement because right now, she's vibrating at the speed of light as she does her best to contain her rage. How dare they do this to her, Isagi-sama, when he worked so hard to contribute to the nation? Unacceptable. Seeing her like that somewhat scares Isagi, so he urges her to calm down. But how could she? Doesn't Isagi-sama feel wronged? Honestly speaking, he'd be lying if he said this is fine, but for him, it's enough to see that Melsia sees his worth. Plus, he also feels happy seeing her get mad on his behalf. After all, he's just an orphan and nobody has ever stood up for him. But now he has Melsia, and that alone makes him feel glad. That seems to have worked, because Melsia is back to her timid self. But more important than that, she asks him what he plans to do next. Well, Isagi didn't really expect to walk in there and get fired, so at the moment he still has no plans on what to do next. Sure, the orphanage would welcome him if he returned there, but making a living is an entirely different story. It's just one stress after another for our poor hero. Melsia is quiet, pondering over something, and after a beat she shyly asks Isagi if he wants to come to her hometown. Say what? Melsia doubles back on what she said, though in her defense she's just suggesting a different option, okay? No, wait a minute, let her cook. Isagi remembers that Melsia's hometown is in the Beastman Kingdom, right? According to her, it's just a small remote village near the border. Well, he's happy that she invited him over, but can someone like him even do anything? Of course he can. Melsia almost shouted this in his ears. What's more, she tells Isagi that everyone in the village would be thrilled to have a great alchemist like Isagi there. Seeing her so intent is quite a shock for Isagi, but her reasons don't stop there. The beastman cat maid continues that their village is blessed with natural resources, but despite this, it didn't save them from the food shortage. If anything, this problem just got worse. Isagi recalls that when Melsia first offered to help with his research, she said it's because she wants to create resilient crops to save others, no? Now that he remembers it, the two of them made a promise that if they ever succeeded, they would send crops to Melsia's village. Looking at the small bag of seeds on his table, this is the very proof that Isagi and Melsia's research is a success. The only thing left for him to do is to adjust the crop according to the village's soil. Isagi is in the zone right now, focusing on what he needs to do about the crop. Because when it all comes down to it, all he really needs to do is modify the crop to be more compatible with the land. Alright, it's decided. Isagi turns to Melsia and says he'll go to her village. With renewed vigor, he tells her that they can introduce their crops there, and if they can improve the food supply, that could start a worldwide impact. Melsia is more than happy with Isagi's decision, beaming as she thanked her Isagi-sama. But wait, is this really okay? Now that she thinks about it, any nation would welcome her Isagi-sama, given his talent and ingenuity when it comes to agriculture. Isagi can't believe her. Now she's saying all of these things after she just invited him over? Well, to be fair, Melsia admits that she just got too excited when she made the suggestion. Isagi, being the God-given gift that he is to humanity, replies that it's better to just help people in need instead of just watching with his hands tied. And with this freedom, he can now start making a change in this nation. And if those aren't reasons enough, Isagi also adds that Melsia has been nothing but a big help for him throughout his research, so of course he wants to return the favor. Is he not allowed to do that? Hearing him say that got Melsia all teary-eyed now. Of course Isagi-sama can do that. Well, now that everything's settled, Melsia will just go and inform them of her resignation, and then they can start packing. That's good enough for Isagi, saying he'll see her later. Wait a minute, hold on! Isagi almost makes a run for it, calling after Melsia as she walks away. Is she really going to quit her job for him? The beastman cat maid tells him that she is. She has to, since she needs to help her Isagi-sama, as if that's the most natural thing for her to do in this world. Is she being for real right now? It's quite the prestigious job working at the castle, not to mention that the pay is pretty good too. Tia can't help but giggle at the way Isagi is acting right now. He's worrying like she was a moment ago. From the looks of it, Melsia won't change her mind, so with that, they decide to go to her village together. After packing their stuff, Melsia, with a gigantic knapsack on her back, asks Isagi if he's ready and if he has everything he needs. The alchemist only looks at her and says that he's got everything he needs in his magical backpack. Kind of like Doraemon's pocket, the beastman cat maid can only stare, impressed at her Isagi-sama's alchemy. After all, it's thanks to this that he's able to store way more stuff in his magical backpack than normal. Since everything's settled, Melsia tells him that they'll need to travel for about a month to reach the Beastman Kingdom. It's quite a long trip, but she hopes they can enjoy it as much as they can. Isagi looks at the castle one last time before finally boarding the carriage. They left the city in early September, and the days passed quickly by then, the two enjoying the journey at their own pace. Then, finally, one fine day in October, Melsia wakes Isagi to tell him they've finally arrived. Isagi rubs his eyes and looks out the carriage window as he finally sees Melsia's hometown for the first time. This is it, the Beastman Kingdom, Polmenia Village. The two got off the carriage with Isagi happy to see that there were all sorts of beastmen here. They may still be at the border, but there's no doubt that this is the Beastman Kingdom. From dog-like old men smoking and rams carrying buckets, the place is pretty lively. Melsia suggests they head to her home first, but Isagi thinks they should drop by the village chief first. He thinks they would be surprised to find a human among their kind, but Melsia says he doesn't have to worry about it. The village chief is her father after all. What? Couldn't she have said that before they left? Well, it's because she wanted to surprise him, that's why. Oh man, what's a boy to do? Isagi can't help but sag, feeling nervous at the prospect of meeting the village chief, who also happens to be Melsia's dad. What if they don't need an alchemist here? While our hero is on the brink of a crash out, Melsia assures him that anyone who says otherwise will get a firm talking to, clenching her fist as she says so. It's not even directed to him, but suddenly Isagi feels fearful of her. Anyway, the two proceed to head to her home with Melsia leading the way. It didn't take long before they finally reached the place, with Melsia informing Isagi that she'll head in first to greet her parents. But the moment she touched the door handle, her mother came flying out the door to greet her. The older woman is also smiling, welcoming her daughter back, while Melsia tries to reel her in a bit. Her mom can't help it though, rubbing her cheeks to the point that they almost molded against Melsia's cheeks, leaving the cat maid embarrassed. Is that so? Finally, Melsia's mother introduces herself as Sienna, and our hero does the same. With that, she urges both of them to head inside so they can discuss the details with the village chief. Isagi barely stepped through the front door when a grumpy beastman glaring at him was the first thing he saw. This must be Melsia's father, and for some reason, he looks angry. The older beastman may look angry, but at least he's still polite enough to let Isagi take a seat first. As soon as he sits, our hero introduces himself, saying his name is Isagi, and that he's an alchemist from Remris. To his and Melsia's surprise, the older beastman shouts a hard no at our hero. He exudes an intimidating aura, glaring at Isagi as he says he won't give his daughter away to some guy with a sketchy background. Isagi hasn't even formed a reply yet when Melsia's father continues, saying Melsia is his precious little girl, and Isagi dared to appear here unannounced. Contrary to him, Sienna tells him it's fine. For her, she's happy that their shy daughter actually brought a man back with her, which means she must have made up her mind already. Hearing her folks talk like that as if she's not in the room with them is enough to get her all fed up. Melsia finally stands and tells them that they got it wrong. She invited Isagi to become their village's alchemist. The utter look of shock on her father's face is priceless. Now, if only he could dig a hole in the ground and hide there for a little while, because that was plain embarrassing. Well anyway, the older beastman regains his composure and introduces himself as Kelsey, the village chief. So is he correct to presume that Isagi wants to stay in the village? Isagi says yes, adding that he wants to work as an alchemist here. At the mere mention of his job, both of Melsia's parents kept quiet and furrowed their brows. What is something he said? Why is everyone suddenly so quiet? At that, Melsia turns to Isagi and suggests that maybe her parents don't know what alchemy is. Now that's something new for Isagi. They've never met an alchemist before? Really? As much as it's embarrassing to admit it, Kelsey says their daughter is right, no worries. Isagi went on a full ramble about alchemists and began his explanation. Alchemists are people who use magic to transform materials, but they can't produce something out of nothing. To perform alchemy, the materials they will recreate have to share certain things with the material at hand, like components and fundamental properties, and it's best not to deviate too much from the original matter. But all in all, alchemy is a field with extremely high practicality. All that jargon. Melsia's parents are more like no thought, head empty. All that monologue, and it seems that Isagi only managed to confuse her parents even more. Melsia finally suggests that it will be much better if Isagi can just show them what it is. Right then, so our guy asks to borrow Kelsey's sword. Isagi unsheathes it while the older beastman brags, saying it's a manatite sword he just bought recently. That's where he's wrong though, because Isagi points out that there's no manatite in his sword. What? This is where alchemists come in handy. With their trained eyes, skills, and knowledge, they can discern the true material in an item. And upon checking, Isagi deduced that this sword of Kelsey's is not made of manatite. It's just a low-quality alloy that looks like manatite. A namatite, FYI. Manatite is a material known to enhance a weapon's power, so knowing this is just a knockoff broke poor Kelsey's heart. This cost him 20 silver coins, mind you. But don't worry, Isagi is here. Our guy takes his gloves off and assures Kelsey it'll be okay. With alchemy, he can transform this weapon into a real manatite sword. Melsia's parents were confused. How in the heck is Isagi going to do that? Especially since manatite is a magic metal that's pretty hard to handle. Rather than answer them, Isagi worked his magic. The sword is suddenly enveloped in a magic circle and levitates in Isagi's hands. As it glows, Isagi analyzes the sword's shape and weight before imbuing it with manatite, sliding his hand from the hilt down to the tip as he goes. With that, it's done. He hands the manatite sword to Kelsey and the older beastman looks at it incredulously. Is this really a manatite sword? Isagi suggests he try using some magic on it, and soon enough the blade glowed like crazy. Kelsey spots a literal target just a little above Isagi's head and throws the sword straight into it. Not only did the manatite sword hit the target head-on, but it also pierced through the wall and landed outside. It worked! While Kelsey is feeling happier with his revamped sword, Sienna grabs him by the shoulder with the promise of a threat. Just what the heck was he doing? She may be smiling, but there's no denying the sickening aura beneath that facade as Kelsey tries to save himself from doom. It's not his fault. He didn't even know the sword would be this powerful. But Sienna's already cracking her knuckles, ready to let him have it. Thankfully, our literal hero Isagi intervenes, saying it's his fault and that he can fix it right away. God bless alchemy. Since they now see Isagi as the real deal, our hero continues educating them about alchemy. He shows them another sample, transmuting objects as he explains, and adds that his ultimate goal is to use alchemy on agriculture. Upon hearing that, Kelsey's face turned serious because just like what Melsia said before, their land has very poor soil quality. Agriculture wouldn't thrive in this place. Isagi knows that, and he's also aware that it's causing the yield from their forests and mountains to decline. Kelsey looks at him all puzzled because if Isagi knew that, then why go here? With his whole chest, Isagi answers that it's because he wants to improve agriculture with his alchemy. Melsia already filled him in about the village's situation, which is why she wants to improve crop robustness. By doing so, they can thrive even in infertile soil. Isagi's only wish in life is to save even just one person from hunger. This time, Melsia chimed in, telling her father that their mountains and forests would be completely depleted, which is why she humbly asked her parents to allow Isagi-sama to use alchemy for agriculture. Kelsey still doesn't fully believe in his dream, but if Isagi can do it, then he will allow it. Melsia and Isagi couldn't be more thankful upon hearing Kelsey's blessings. Since that's all settled, the older beastman will provide a spacious house for Isagi to stay in while Sienna jots down where it's located. She hands the scroll to her daughter, instructing Melsia to show where Isagi will stay. Melsia turns to Isagi with a smile. Let's go. The Beastman village may be remote, but it's a bright and sunny day outside, perfect for a stroll. On their way there, Isagi thought about how he never felt welcomed back at the palace. But here he's free to do whatever he wants. He can do everything he can for his beliefs. While the two are busy heading to Isagi's new place, they fail to notice that there's another pair of eyes on them, a female beastman. And is that? Isagi and Melsia traverse the fields to go to his new place. As they made their way to it, he made a mental note to make this village prosperous through alchemy. They walked and walked some more until finally they reached his new, dilapidated home. It's a piece of work, and the mismatched planks add character to it, as the two couldn't believe this would be Isagi's new house. Frankly speaking, it's a rundown house. You best believe Melsia is fuming, because how can the Isagi-sama live in such harsh conditions? To be fair, Isagi reminds her that Kelsey-san told them beforehand that it's a bit dusty. Not sure we're speaking the same language, but dusty does not equate to rundown. Melsia is enraged, of course. She marches off, ready to give her dad an earful, but Isagi tells her it's okay. So what if it's not fit to live in? They can just rebuild it. After all, that's something at least an alchemist can do. Besides, Isagi has always wanted to try building his own house, and now's the time to do so. Isagi may have had the title of Royal Alchemist a month ago, but this poor kid still faced discrimination because he was an orphan. He even lived in a shoebox warehouse because of that. Fast forward to now, he wants to design his own house, and if that's what he really wants, then who is Melsia to intervene with that? He touches the plank, inspecting it, and sees that the wood is too deteriorated to recycle. He removes his gloves, telling Melsia that they need to dismantle this house. To do that, he needs to use magic, and with the tap of his palm, a magic circle appears. A second later, the house dismantles by itself. Melsia volunteers to remove the planks to clear the area, which Isagi is grateful for, knowing those planks must have been pretty heavy. Isagi rummages through his magical bag for something to clear out the weeds and pulls out a modified herbicide. He sprays a bit through the weeds, instantly killing them off, showcasing just how effective this toxin is thanks to alchemy. Since the place is all cleared up, Isagi says it's time to build the house. Isagi pulls one plank after another from his magical knapsack, and mind you, there are no ordinary planks. They're harvested from plant-type monsters. He enhances their durability using alchemy, and with levitation magic he puts them all into place, starting with the framework to the structural system. Wait, couldn't he have just used levitation magic earlier instead of letting Melsia do the brunt work? Anyway, Isagi is focused on building his house from the ground up, and he does so easily because he already has the blueprint in his head. Execution-wise, he's got it down thanks to alchemy. And before long, tada! It's finished! Melsia claps at Isagi's finished work, with the two of them entering the premises to check the interior. Despite it being his home, Isagi can't help but feel conscious if it's Melsia approved, or maybe if he overdid himself. Fortunately, Melsia doesn't think of that sort. If anything, the interiors are exactly like Isagi's style. The two of them checked every surface, nook, and cranny on the ground floor before checking upstairs, with the bathroom as their last stop. Since everything's polished, Isagi's next project would be his workshop, but that's for another chapter. Right now, he asks Melsia if she can help him furnish the place, which the latter is more than happy to do. From his magical knapsack, Isagi starts pulling a chair and a table, and that's basically it. Looking at these two pieces of furniture, he can't help but comment on how he doesn't really have that many. Yeah, no crap, Sherlock. Melsia is not too surprised though, since she saw firsthand how her Isagi-sama practically lived in that shoebox warehouse. But a warehouse, huh? The mere memory of it makes him feel a little bad. Suddenly they hear someone call out to Melsia from outside. The beastman cat maid runs to the door, surprised to see her mom. Sienna is standing outside holding a broom, but she's more surprised to see that there's actually a building in their village that looks this marvelous. At that, Melsia explains that Isagi used alchemy to renovate the old house, making it more habitable, which impressed Sienna. Speaking of Isagi, he appears and apologizes to Sienna for taking matters into his own hands and doing as he pleased with the place. She doesn't mind though, and she originally planned to stop by to help both of them settle in. But from the looks of it, that won't be necessary. But the ever-so-polite Isagi thanks Sienna for the well-intentioned help. Since she's already here, she asks if she can take a look at the place, and Isagi's more than happy to give her the tour. They start with the kitchen, and while Sienna's mom marvels at how spacious it is, Isagi notices that the cupboards are too high for Melsia. Desperate to prove he's wrong, Melsia tries to reach for it, assuring him that she can reach it as long as she's on her tiptoes. Ultimately, Isagi uses alchemy to lower it so it's within her reach. Sienna returns just in time and tells her daughter that they only need a few kitchen appliances to make this place a whole lot better than hers. Speaking of furniture, Melsia asks her mom if they have any furniture they don't use and if she can bring it here. You best believe their family has more than a couple of pieces of unused furniture, because in the next panel, Isagi's home really feels like a home now, thanks to Melsia. Isagi is more than ecstatic to see his house finally looks the part, and seeing his positive reaction also pleases her. However, Melsia finds his walls are too bare, which is why she wants to decorate them with something. She keeps muttering about a few minor adjustments, like the vase on the table, when she suddenly hears Isagi's stomach growling. Well, it's best to have dinner first then. Melsia brings out a large pot, courtesy of her mom, that's ready to eat. It's still steaming hot, and for today's dinner they're having milk soup. Melsia feels apologetic since their food is too plain, but it's right up to Isagi's tastes. Melsia fills his bowl, taking in their simple dinner. Sienna-san's special milk soup with mushrooms and wild vegetables is paired with a few pieces of bread from Isagi's knapsack. With that, let's dig in. Just when he's about to take his first bite, Isagi notices Melsia standing behind him. Huh? Is she not going to join him for dinner? The mere mention of that almost sent Melsia spiraling. After all, she's still his maid, so eating together is off the table. Isagi reminds her then that they're no longer at the palace, so nobody cares if they eat together. She asks if it's really okay with him, and of course it's okay. So they should eat together now. Melsia is pleased, thanking him for allowing her to join him for his meal. For the first time, the two sat opposite each other while having a meal. Isagi can't help but comment on how it feels different sitting in front of each other, and even Melsia feels unsettled. Well, he urges her not to think about it too much, and with that, Isagi finally blows on the soup and takes the first taste. It's delicious. He's impressed at how he can taste the sweetness of the milk in it, but more importantly, what type of vegetable did Sienna-san use? Melsia replies that it's called a kirukuku grass. It's pretty native in their area, and it's pretty good. From this soup alone, Isagi takes the time to analyze the vegetable. The stem is still crunchy, yet the leaves are cooked to perfect tenderness, which makes this vegetable ideal for stir-fries and hot pot. Plus, there's also the umami flavor from the mushroom, and the ham adds a bit of saltiness. With the milk adding sweetness to the whole soup, it perfectly harmonizes the overall flavor of the dish. Pairing it with bread and soaking it in the soup also adds to the overall appeal of this hearty dinner, which makes Isagi so happy with how heartwarming this is. A little while later, they finish their dinner and Melsia happily volunteers to do the dishes, but Isagi insists that he should do it. The sun's about to set after all, so Melsia should go home, especially since it's been a while since her last visit here. Melsia flat out tells him that she's not going back. Nani? So is she planning to spend the night at his place? Well, not exactly spend the night, but more like she plans to stay here and help her Isagi-sama. She what? Just imagine the panic on Isagi's face right now, because first of all, this isn't the palace. And he's no longer the royal court's alchemist, so there's no need to serve him. Melsia is fully aware of that, and that's exactly why she can now fully devote all her time to taking care of her Isagi-sama. Well, she has a point. Even he can't argue with that. Still, Isagi tries to dissuade her, saying her room isn't even ready yet. But Melsia's one step ahead. She did the honors of setting up her room in one of the empty rooms upstairs. What did he even expect from the likes of her? Still, Isagi tries to counter, but after Melsia hits him with the kawaii pose, he can only let out an exasperated sigh. Okay, fine, he feels happy and grateful that she's here with him. Melsia's ears perked up the instant she heard him say that, but there is one thing that's troubling him though. He can't help but worry over how Melsia's parents would react, especially Kelsey-san. At the mention of that, she gives him a fake smile while shaking in place. Not to worry, she got her mom's permission after all. Only her mom? Then that means, yeah, you got it right. Kelsey-san is about to go beast mode, yelling for his daughter from the outside of Isagi's home to come home. There's no way in hell he's allowing the two of them to live together under one roof. The next day, Melsia comes knocking on Isagi's door. He readily opens up for her, but she's not that happy, looking forlorn. Isagi asks if she has already talked to Kelsey-san about it, which she says she has. Unfortunately, her dad won't budge about his decision, so Melsia would have to travel back and forth to help him out with work. It's obvious she's pretty bummed out about this, but Isagi already expected this much. She's Kelsey-san's one and only daughter after all. It makes sense for the older beastman to be protective of her. Isagi tries to cheer her up, saying at least they talked it out. Besides, just having her come over to his place is more than enough for our guy. But no, it's not enough for her. She's even more frantic, telling Isagi that she can convince her dad to let her stay here and serve Isagi-sama, she just needs more time. Compared to him, she looks even more pressed. He's not even pressuring yet. but Isagi still tells Melsia all the same not to stress too much about it, and that it would make him feel bad if she and her dad got into a fight just because of this. He can't bring it up, but the mere thought of suddenly living together with her also overwhelms him. She was about to say more when they heard someone call out to Melsia. Both Isagi and she turned to see who it was, and it's another female beastman. This person happily calls out to Melsia affectionately, heading straight to the cat maid since she heard Melsia has returned. Melsia finally greets the other beastman, but the other is already firing one question after another. Why did Melsia suddenly return home? Then she turns to Isagi with her mouth open and brows furrowed. She stares at him intently, leaving Isagi to give her a little awkward wave. Aha! She finally gets it. Melsia came home to introduce her husband. Melsia panics, so Isagi has to introduce himself along with his occupation. Oh ho, this girl is excited at the prospect of the village becoming prosperous again. Based on her judgment, Isagi doesn't look like a bad person, so she extends her hand in greeting and finally introduces herself as Nia, Melsia's childhood friend. She shakes Isagi's hand fervently while Melsia watches them wordlessly. In his mind, Isagi's just happy a beastman like her easily accepted a human like him. Nia leans close to her friend, asking Melsia if she personally invited Isagi. Suddenly being put on the spot like this, the latter feels a little embarrassed, but so what if she invited her Isagi-sama over? Seeing Melsia all flustered like this, Nia always believed that she was Melsia's closest friend. But would you look at that? Melsia actually acts differently with someone she truly cares about. While the two women are huddled together, Isagi can only stare at their backs, wishing he had a friend like Nia. Anyway, Nia didn't take long and she had to leave. But before she did, she bid Isagi and Melsia good luck with their crops. Once she's gone, Melsia apologizes to Isagi for Nia being so loud, but Isagi's cool about it. In fact, he's happy she even talked to him. Now then, they both turn to the fields before them. It's time to get to work. She had to ask if they're really going to start working now, and yes they are, since Isagi wants to check if plants can grow here. He thought about how he was able to clear the weeds yesterday before he built the house, but today he needs to plow the soil too. Well, it's a good thing they have this boulder in the area, no? Isagi says they could use this, tapping the surface, analyzing the rock's components before using magic to change its form. Lo and behold, the giant boulder became a stone golem. Once he's settled on the golem's form, Isagi rummages through his bag for a magic gem. This item will serve as the golem's energy supply. He just needs to embed it on the golem's chest. As soon as he did, the stone entity stirred to life, and as practice, Isagi had the golem walk forward before ordering it to plow the soil for him. Seeing the golem work flawlessly, Isagi's happy to see that there seems to be no issue with its flow or magic. Melsia is impressed with Isagi's golem, and while the former is busy plowing the fields, she volunteers to spread herbicide around. But she stopped speaking mid-sentence as soon as she heard Kelsey-san from behind, asking Isagi what that thing on the field is. Isagi turns to greet the older beastman, and like always, our guy explains what the golem is and assures the village chief that it won't attack the village. Well, Kelsey-san's not too sure about the other's explanation, but he admits how convenient alchemy is. He already asked this question last night, but Kelsey-san had to ask again if Isagi really believes he can grow some crops here. So far, our alchemist sees that the quality of soil here in the village doesn't differ that much from the empire's, so he thinks it's possible. At least that's his working theory. Meanwhile, Kelsey-san may still be talking about the soil, but his attention is on his daughter, who's silently spraying herbicide on the field. Now that he realizes it, Isagi noticed that Melsia hasn't acknowledged her dad's presence ever since he got here. She must still be mad about yesterday. Isagi plays it off and plasters a smile, but deep inside he can feel the incredible tension. Anyway, he starts rummaging through his magical knapsack again, saying he'll start growing the crops now, and tells Kelsey-san that he's welcome to watch if he wants to. He produces a sack of seeds out of his knapsack, adding that if things go well today, maybe they can even harvest the crops immediately. Kelsey-san can't wrap his head around that idea. Immediate harvest? Yeah, and you can give birth to a baby in a day. No matter how he looks at it, it's impossible. His skepticism is blatantly displayed on his face, but Isagi pays him no mind and starts using a special fertilizer on the soil. While doing so, Isagi explains that this fertilizer is enhanced using alchemy, so it shares the same key ingredient as the ones used in the Empire. But in this case, Isagi altered and enhanced the properties according to his own formula to increase the fertilizer's nutritional value. Kelsey-san can't keep up, nor does he understand. For all he knows, Isagi may just as well be speaking Latin right now. After a continued silence, Melsia finally speaks up and translates it so her dad can understand. It means the fertilizer Isagi made is enhanced to improve the soil. Ah, is that so? Kelsey-san feels a little embarrassed that even he couldn't understand something as simple as that. Melsia, on the other hand, apologizes to Isagi for bringing such a tense atmosphere. Well, the good-natured Isagi doesn't mind and he respects everyone's opinions. But right now, he hopes everyone would just get along, highlighting the fact that family is irreplaceable. so Melsia has no choice but to comply. Now that the field is plowed, Isagi suggests they distribute the fertilizer all over the field. Melsia and the golem get to work, with Isagi explaining to Kelsey-san that the areas with the fertilizer will be mixed thoroughly by the golem, using a hoe, then divided into 2 rows. Once they're done, Isagi rummages for the seeds in his bag so they can sow them. Upon hearing that, Kelsey-san was quick to point out that they should allow some time for the soil and fertilizer to mix well together. Well, that would be true if this were a normal case, but with Isagi's fertilizer, his product has a much higher decomposition rate, so there's no downtime for it. Oh ho, magic! Kelsey-san is impressed, while Melsia adds that this is expected of her Isagi-sama. She's really out here setting the bar high, no? Now then for the chosen crop. The first one they will plant is something that can grow easily even on barren land. It's a familiar plant we all love, potatoes. But these ones are genetically modified potatoes. Isagi gets his hands dirty, planting the potatoes into rows and covering them with soil. He splashes a bucket of water on them and waits as the crops grow quickly and are ready to harvest in moments. Huh? Again, Kelsey-san, the naysayer, tells him that there's no way the potatoes will be ready in an instant. If anything, it should take them about 3 or 4 months to... But the village chief didn't get to finish his sentence. On his feet, he sees leaflets sprouting from the ground at an alarming speed, and before long he sees rows of luscious greens lining up the whole field. Melsia and Isagi smile, but Kelsey-san has his mouth hanging open. What in the harvest moon happened? Another moment passes before Isagi tells them that the stems and leaves have turned yellow. This means the potatoes are ready for harvest. Isagi grabs hold of the nearest bundle, eager to check his work, while Melsia and her dad watch in quiet anticipation. He pulls the crop and is happy to see that a bunch of potatoes are well intact below. They did it. Hey, well, Isagi admits that he was pretty confident that he'd pull through with this, but seeing it play out in real time makes him happy. Melsia congratulates him for a job well done, and then there's Kelsey-san, who's shouting praises, holding a bunch of potatoes in his own hands. These crops are barely a year old. Amazing. Well, Isagi tells the village chief that it's only natural for him to feel overwhelmed and suggests they give these potatoes a taste test. Melsia suggests they do a simple stir-fry, with Isagi pointing out that it's a great day to do outdoor cooking. They quickly set up a modest kitchen and let Melsia take over. She peels the potatoes while Isagi rummages for his knapsack for another item. Kelsey-san stands by his side, asking our guy what that thing is on his hands now. It's a burner with an alchemical symbol on it, and Isagi says it's a tool used to create fire. He dials the knob to show how it works, and poof, then there's fire. Isagi adjusts the knob further, explaining that this allows him to control the intensity of the fire as needed. Oh ho, Kelsey-san heard beforehand that the city has many convenient items, but it's such a blessing to have a fire whenever you want. He asks Isagi if he made that item too, which our guy affirms with a smile. After all, creating magic tools like this is an alchemist's job. Let's move on to the potatoes. After peeling and cutting the potatoes into bite-sized pieces, Melsia oils the pan and sautés them over medium heat. She flips them once they turn a golden brown color and puts the lid on to let them cook a bit more. Meanwhile, Isagi and Kelsey-san are already waiting, plates in hand, to taste this simple dish. After 4 minutes have passed, Melsia tells them that it's ready, serving the potatoes on a plate. She tells the guys that they can just adjust the seasoning according to their liking, but Kelsey-san is on the verge of tears and salivating at the food made by his daughter. Finally, they took a bite and chewed generously. As always, Isagi comments that the food is tasty, and Melsia points out that all the flavors are there. Contrary to them, Kelsey-san is experiencing an awakening. These potatoes taste different from the ones normally grown in the village. What's more, he can feel a surge of energy coursing through his veins. Isagi munches on his food, noting that beastmen sure have pretty sharp senses. He tells Kelsey-san that the reason for that is that the potatoes are enhanced in a way that boosts one's vitality, but on such a level? Sure, the effects are pretty mild, but the village chief can only look at the food in awe while Melsia clears the plates. Now that the two are left alone, Kelsey-san asks if these alchemy-enhanced plants can be grown in this village. Isagi assures him that it's possible, and even if it's not, he promises to find a way to make sure these crops can grow since it's his job. Kelsey-san is impressed with our boy's dedication. While Isagi is already rambling about his plans, he wants to expand the fields to ensure a stable supply, and he'll also grow more types of enhanced crops to offer a greater variety of produce to the people. Kelsey-san never said it out loud, but he's thinking that if it's Isagi, then he can surely make this land fertile because he alone has what it takes to do that. With that, the village chief grants Isagi his blessing and leaves all of this in our guy's capable hands. Isagi couldn't be thankful enough and promised to keep growing more and more crops. That's what he said. But the next day, not only did they have potatoes, but there were also rows and rows of tomatoes, carrots, and all sorts of different crops that dwarfed Isagi's home. It's practically a farmland. Talk about overkill. Well, even Isagi had to admit that he may have overdone it a little, and yeah, Melsia can see that obviously. Today, while out on the field, Isagi can't help but reminisce about his life back in the palace. Back then, they had a hard time growing crops because of the limited land in the empire. Maybe that's the reason why Isagi was suddenly granted such an expansive land. He really went ham on it and planted way too many crops out of excitement. Now he low-key regrets his excitement because how in the hell are they going to harvest this much produce? Sure, he can preserve the majority of them in his magic backpack, but when it comes to harvesting the crops, that's an entirely different problem. If they don't harvest all of these fast enough, they'll end up missing the harvest time for half of them. Melsia had to ask the obvious question. Can't he just make more stone golems to help them out? Well, that would have been ideal, but without magic gems, Isagi can't really make another stone golem. Since they're like this, Melsia suggests they ask her parents for help. Isagi's on board with the idea, so Melsia hurries back to her parents' home to ask for their help. With only Isagi and the stone golem at work, the two do their best to harvest as much as they can when suddenly, he hears someone cry out in fear. It's Nea. She stands frozen on her feet, shaking like a leaf while staring at the unusual sight before her. In all her life, never has she seen the village with such a large field before. Oh, we thought she was scared about the golem, but good for her. Isagi explains that he did all of this yesterday thanks to alchemy. Like Kelsey-san, she couldn't believe he did this, especially since Isagi had only been around for 2 days. Even the mere fact of growing anything in this village is odd enough, let alone having this field of crops that are ready for harvest. Well, it's because of alchemy, like he always says. Nea-san just about had enough of him saying that when they heard a voice telling her that what Isagi said is correct. Nia turns and sees that it's Kelsey-san, and he's with Sienna-san too. He vouches for Isagi, saying he saw his alchemy at work with his own 2 eyes, how Isagi was able to grow those enhanced crops. All of these crops can be totally planted in this village. If Kelsey-san is saying that, then it must be true. Nea-san is quick to believe the village chief and turns to Isagi to ask if they're scheduled for harvesting now. Our guy can only chuckle, his voice a little strained as he adds that he might have just planted one too many crops for them to harvest. Speaking of harvest, Kelsey-san looks around to see the whole field is practically filled with produce, and this is just a day's worth of work. Again, Isagi apologizes for getting carried away, but the village chief assures him that he would rather see this much abundance than barren land. He's right, you know? Sienna-san jumps to support her husband, saying this is the first time their village has experienced such a bountiful harvest. Even she can't help but feel nervous about this. Nea-san adds that she'll help out too, so with all 5 of them and the stone golem, they started the long harvest. Melsia helps her parents pick the squash and cabbages, while Isagi and the stone golem work on the radishes. After that, they start harvesting the eggplants and the other produce. Just then, Nea-san calls out to Isagi asking if she can try tasting a tomato. Given there are a lot of them, Isagi gives her the go-ahead. She takes a bite and starts feeling giddy because what is this thing? It tastes completely different from all the tomatoes she has eaten in her life. Isagi adds that this type of tomato not only grows quickly, but its sweetness is also enhanced, gaining another hype from Nea-san. While they were talking, Melsia quietly lurked in the background until she finally joined and asked what the two were having fun about. Melsia also picks a tomato and tells Isagi she'll try one too, but no sooner had she taken one bite than Nea was already all over her. What's this? In the short time Nea-san hasn't seen her friend, Melsia can now act cutely toward other people. Her teasing got Melsia flushed beet red, so the two ended up getting into a little chase. Isagi, unaware that he's the root of the two's fiasco, just munches on the tomato, commenting on the two's closeness. After 3 long days of harvest, finally they're done. Isagi couldn't thank them enough given how all the crops were sacked and sorted. Speaking of crops, Kelsey-san asks what he plans to do with all of them. Isagi says he'll distribute them to everyone in the village since his magical backpack will overload if he doesn't do so. Well, how about this? Sienna suggests they throw a party. The villagers will make dishes using Isagi's harvested crops so they can invite everyone over to have a taste. Plus, this will be a good chance for him to meet everyone in the village. At the mention of a party, Isagi can't help but worry, thinking about the kind of parties he had at the palace. Melsia seems to know what he's thinking about, so she explains that it may sound like a party, but it's really just a gathering of people. Oh well, if that's the case, then it's all good. That settles it. Kelsey-san's all fired up, excited to tell everyone that they should start preparing for the party tonight. Wait, tonight already? Just like that, Isagi got swept away by their flow, and he eventually caved into the beastman's hype. While Kelsey-san and the others went ahead to inform about the upcoming party tonight, Isagi and Melsia stayed behind to clean up. After they're done, the two make their way to the village. While walking, Isagi can't help but wonder if this is really okay. He's a human after all, and he also just got here recently. As such, he's not too sure if anybody would even show up for him. Personally speaking, Mercia thinks people would still show up. She turns to him, showing him how a lot of the beastmen are already at the town square, since it has been a while since they had a party like this after all. To his surprise, a lot of beastmen did come, and all of them seemed to be enjoying themselves. They came right on time because Sienna-san told him they were just about to start cooking. He can start bringing the ingredients over there. Isagi unloads all the produce from his knapsack. Many of the villagers quickly gather round, eager to see Isagi's produce. It's been a long time since they've seen fresh ingredients, and before long, everyone was discussing what they would cook for tonight. It literally took a village to pull off this party, and everyone was just so happy to take part in the cookout. While most of the ladies sorted the vegetables, Isagi took the honor of lighting the fire so they could start cooking. Melsia, as always, leads the cooking of one of the dishes, and before long they manage to cook multiple foods that everyone can enjoy. But before they dive in, Kelsey-san calls Isagi to approach the podium. With that, the village chief thanks everyone for coming, highlighting that all the ingredients and good food laid before them are all thanks to Isagi. Kelsey-san adds that he just moved to the village and grew all the crops by himself. Suddenly being put on the spot like this left our guy feeling embarrassed, but what's a boy to do? Isagi stood up straight and said his name and occupation, an alchemist. He says the usual formalities when one is new at the place, but since it's too formal for Kelsey-san's liking, Isagi had to change his approach. With a smile, he tells everyone that there is a lot of food and they should enjoy tonight's party. That's the spirit. Kelsey-san likes that one more. And to celebrate their new villager, he raises his drink in hand and gives a cheer for Isagi. With that, everyone starts to dig in. The village has never been this lively in a long while, and Isagi had to do a little walk of shame to see if there's a seat left for him. Thankfully, Melsia raises her hand to call his attention, saying she saved a seat for him at their table. As expected of Melsia, she also has a plate ready for him as well. She hands him a plate of a classic French dish called pot-au-feu. Isagi sits and blows on the food before taking his first bite. His taste buds are met with the sweetness of the carrots and onions and get a little kick thanks to the peppers. The other ingredients like the potatoes, mushrooms, and sausages also make it so savory that he can't help but enjoy this meal in silence. Nia herself enjoys the food a lot, squealing since she hasn't had a soup like this that's filled with so many vegetables in a long while. Usually she just uses leftovers to save money, but with this many dishes, she couldn't be happier. A beastman from the other table heard her and feels a little sad because after this party, they'll have to go back to their normal lives, won't they? It's back to the scarcity again. Upon hearing that, others try to shush him because come on, don't dampen the mood, man. Isagi also heard him, and he doesn't blame the guy for that mindset. Given their current situation, it's impossible to increase the food supply for every single household. With that, he decides to grit his teeth, slamming his hands on the table and telling the beastman not to worry. Everyone turns to him, as Isagi promises that if they continue to use his improved crops, anyone can grow them. These crops can thrive in barren land and are resistant to cold and disease. With that said, he tells everyone that he'll be giving out seeds for these improved crops. Nea-san asks if she could also grow these by herself. Of course she can, as long as she gives them proper care. Isagi's speech got everyone stirring in their seats. Even the beastman from before mutters to himself that this feels like a dream. With Isagi readily helping them, they can't help but ask, why is he doing this? He hasn't even been staying in this village for a week yet. Melsia starts to worry about the way the villagers find him suspicious. But instead of fearing them, Isagi faces them head-on. He shares his story about how she was abandoned in front of the church as a baby, which makes him an orphan. Growing up, he relied on food stamps that he had to fight for and was often left feeling hungry, which is why he understands the pain of hunger. Isagi dreams of one thing: he wants everyone to eat delicious food to fill their stomachs. Upon hearing his story, the beastman apologizes for sounding like he doubted Isagi. It's fine, no biggie. Isagi admits that if he were in the other man's shoes, then he'd probably do the same. Since it's like this, is it possible for Isagi to share his seeds with him? He too would like to add variety to his daily meals. More and more villagers also expressed interest, claiming they want to try farming, especially since resources from the forests are limited. This sudden influx of people wanting to farm almost overwhelms him. Isagi assures them that he has plenty of seeds. With that, the villagers waited in line to receive the seeds from Isagi. In his eyes, no matter if it's a powerful, high-ranking official, hunger does not discriminate and is experienced by everyone. As Melsia helps him mouth, he thinks about how poor nourishment can dry out one's soul and make them wonder what they're even living for. As such, he continued researching foods even after he became an alchemist so that more and more people could have access to delicious foods. Now, if everyone in the village starts farming, the food shortages in Pulmenioa village will improve significantly. Plus, he also wants to further develop an agricultural system ideal for this land. With that, Kelsey-san gives another cheer, a toast to the new hope of Pulmenia village. Cheers! Meanwhile, back at the Remrus Empire in Remrus Castle, Garius reports that the production of magic tools and other items has increased this month, but the person he's reporting to, Prince Weiss Drebenshire Remrus, the heir to the throne, isn't too excited about his report. He's more curious about Isagi, especially since he hasn't received a report from their alchemist in a month. What the hell is he doing? Garius is confused. Why is His Highness so bothered with that insolent peasant? Well, it's better to tell the truth now. The older man explains that he had already fired the useless commoner. After a pause, the prince asked why. Well, it's because a royal alchemist's job is to create tools that serve in the war. Yet all Isagi did was do the bare minimum. He spent most of his time farming when suddenly, His Highness cusses, slams his hand on the table and cusses him out. What has he done? The prince goes on a full rant explaining that Isagi is responsible for creating the Empire's hope to improve their food shortage problem. This is the exact reason why he entrusted Isagi with improving their food situation, so he could ask for more military funding. With him gone, what are they going to do now? Garius is in denial because there's no way a commoner like Isagi has been doing that kind of research. The prince only glares at him, saying how useless he is. So now the older man is left standing in his spot, shaking as he realizes what he has done. The prince gives him an ultimatum. Either Garius can find an alternative solution to produce more food immediately, or he's going to bring Isagi back. Isagi and Melsia speak with one of the village elders, as the latter expresses her gratitude for the seeds our hero gave her. She's pretty amazed at how the plants can survive even in barren conditions like those here in the village. The two smile, saying they're just glad to help. With that, Isagi and Melsia bid the older beast woman goodbye. Ever since he shared the enhanced crop seeds with the villagers, the once modest village has finally witnessed an agricultural boom. On the way back, Melsia mentions that they're right on track for a bountiful harvest if this continues. That's true, but Isagi has some concerns. Melsia notices this and asks what he's worrying about. Isagi explains that the enhanced fertilizer they're using right now is based on the Empire's fertilizer formula. As such, it's only a matter of time before they run out of it in the next few years if they don't do something about it right now. The only solution he's seeing is to produce their own fertilizers here in the village. There's nothing wrong with buying fertilizer from the Empire, but the best option for them is to make it using the village's own ingredients. Now that he said that out loud, even Melsia adds that if they keep taking and taking from what Isagi gives them, then they're really not solving any problems of their own here in Polmenia. Right then, the first step they need to do is to gather all the different types of fertilizers used in the village. As always, Melsia volunteers to do so, saying she'll reach out to the farmers for a sample of their fertilizers. Back at home, the two quickly see the material they can work with, and so far it looks a little dire. They only have 3 kinds of fertilizers, but what did you expect from a remote village? Plus, Melsia points out that their harsh weather conditions are also one of the main reasons why they don't have many farmers in the village. Well, at least it's better than nothing. Isagi quickly gets to work checking to see if these fertilizers can be improved. He tells her that they need more ingredients that carry the unique magical aura of this village to do that. Upon hearing that, Melsia suggests they look for it in the forest. Huh? In the forest? She points out the greenery visible from their window, saying its vibrant color is a telltale sign that the place is where magical ingredients are located. Now that he's looking at it, Isagi sees it too, and that sounds just like what he's looking for. Alright, time to search for the— Hold up! Melsia raises her hand, saying she'll accompany him. Huh? She wants to go too? For one, Melsia says she's been to the forest many times, so having someone like her who can show him the way will come in handy, you know? Isagi's appreciative of her effort, but wouldn't the forest be a dangerous place? With that, Melsia grabs a mop and tells him in a flat tone that she is a maid, whatever that means. He can't seem to connect how being a maid is tied to her safety, so Melsia explains that being a maid means that one needs to have enough strength to protect their master. Well, if she says so. The two head straight to the forest, and Isagi couldn't contain his excitement, seeing all the lush greens and flora. While Melsia continues to walk wordlessly beside him, Isagi can't help but notice that the vegetation looks different from that of the Empire. Is it because they're here in the Beastman Kingdom? Melsia tells him that it's because competition in the natural environment is pretty fierce. As a result, both animals and plants have evolved in their own unique ways. That's when he spots a curious-looking fruit. Is that a star fruit? As he was about to reach for it, Melsia said the fruit secretes acid when it's touched. Isagi pulls his hand back for fear of getting hurt. Whew, nice save! Now that he realizes it, Isagi knows he should examine things more carefully, given his line of work. That's true, as Melsia said, plants can be very dangerous sometimes. As an alchemist, Isagi knew better than to inspect an ingredient, and that's exactly what he did. Inspect. Using this skill allows him to find out more about this fruit, which is an acid star. This plant grows naturally in the southern forest of the Beastman Kingdom. Like what Melsia said earlier, when squeezed, the acid inside the fruit will spray outward. In case the acid comes in contact with the skin, it's advised to rinse immediately with water and treat the affected area. Melsia asks what he plans to do with them, and Isagi answers that he wants to collect them since they can be used to make highly acidic solutions or herbicides. Melsia offers to hold the skin while he cuts the fruit off the plant. After cutting off the fruit, Isagi begins extracting the acid by poking the fruit with a needle. He pours the acid into a collection tube, then stores the actual fruit away in his magic backpack. Woo! That's a bit of work, but as Isagi expected, collecting ingredients in the wild is pretty fun, huh? Melsia is a little surprised to hear that and asks if he didn't do this when he worked for the Empire. He says he didn't. Some random adventurers or the knights were tasked to do that. He could only sigh because can you imagine? There are a lot of cool ideas they could do when they encounter a new ingredient. But Isagi's rant came to a halt as Melsia shouted for him. A giant boar appeared behind them. So as not to scare the beast, the two stood still as Isagi asked what kind of monster this was. She answers that it's a diable, and it's very aggressive. Moreover, it also uses its fangs to launch direct attacks. The boar inches closer, snarling, as Isagi tries to figure out what to do next. To his surprise, Melsia tells him that she'll take care of it and steps forward. Her sudden movement had the boar zero in on her, while Melsia lured it in front of a giant tree. The monster charges but is shocked to see her disappear. Looking around, the boar finally eyes her. She's above him. Melsia does a little tumble mid-air, balling her fist as she punches the boar. It sent the monster flying and unconscious, while Isagi could only look in shock. Melsia took it down in just one punch. Saitama would be proud. Melsia is back to her usual polite self and dusting her apron as if she just didn't take down a 300-pound monster boar, promising her Isagi-sama would never have to worry about something like this again. Now that he remembers it, beastmen are known for their exceptional physical strength, but Melsia is on an entirely different level. It had him asking her if she's really just a maid, just as she claims to be. It's true, she tells him she's just a maid, but for a beastman like her to work in the royal castle, she needed to have great combat skills. Oh, now Isagi understands why she worked the night shifts. Not only is Melsia powerful, but she also has great night vision. Her maid outfit also makes her enemies take her for granted, which is a plus. With her skills and capabilities, Isagi knows Melsia is overqualified at her previous job. But then again, the Empire has always looked down on beastmen. But that's all in the past because if anything, she feels fortunate that she quit the same time Isagi did, especially since the dark forces have been growing more aggressive with their recruitment lately. Wait, what? Isagi thanks her for her service since it's because of her that people like him are safe and sound in the Empire, protecting them day in and day out. For that, he's very grateful. The sudden show of appreciation made Melsia shy, so she tries to play it off, saying it's only natural since night guard is a maid's job. He didn't bother correcting her because, as far as Isagi knows, the knights are supposed to have that job. Anyways, back to the giant dead boar, Isagi says there should be mana stones inside the boar's body. He approaches the monster's body, explaining that the power that the monster absorbs from its food and surroundings is stored in the mana stone. Using his alchemy, Isagi follows the magical hue to locate the exact location in its body. Now that he has an approximate location, he takes his dagger and cuts the boar open. And voila! There it is, the mana stone. And it's about the size of a large apple too. What great size and quality. Surely this must be one of a kind, no? Actually, no. According to Melsia, this is the average size of a mana stone here. No way. At the capital, they rarely have stones of this size, and you're telling me it's just normal here. Isagi had to ask, but is there any chance that there are many monsters around Pulminia village? She says that's right, and if they don't kill them off regularly, there could be too many for them to handle. That's it. If they can harvest enough mana stones with this quality, then maybe they could do it. They can make more fertilizers out of these mana stones. This will be quicker than using magic ingredients for the fertilizer. Well, they should go gather more mana stones then, as Melsia suggests. Isagi says they should hunt more monsters. But before they could go, she tells him that diable meat is pretty tasty. With that said, she'd like to bring some home to the village. Oh yeah, totally. He feels bad for being so focused on collecting the ingredients, but Melsia assures him it's okay. She just needs a bit of time. While she's busy working on procuring the meat, Isagi once again realizes that this place is not like the Empire. To survive, the people here need to find their own food along with ways to store it. Seeing Melsia work on the boar made him realize that he can't live the way he did before. Back then, he had ingredients readily shipped to his place so he could put all his focus on fulfilling the court's orders. He approaches Melsia and asks if she could show him how to butcher the boar too. She's a little taken by the sudden request, but Melsia happily obliges for Isagi. After they got all they could out of the monster boar's body, the two continued to hunt for other monsters. After a little while of doing so, Melsia asks if they're heading back to the village. Isagi checks their bags and yep, with this many mana stones, there should be enough for the fertilizer. Just then he notices something on the ground. Isagi quickly knelt to check the material and noticed that it was slowly transforming. Could it be because they're going deeper into the forest? Excited at the prospect of what's ahead, he asks Melsia if he can see what's ahead for a bit. He points to a nearby mountain, saying there seems to be a lot of minerals in it. Ah, that one. Melsia says mining is doable in the area, although she questions if the process will take long. Isagi says it's fine since he can use alchemy after all. He's already feeling positive about this. If they can have minerals, then they can make more stone golems and other structures. With that, Isagi and Melsia head to the nearby mountain to look for minerals. At the mountain, Isagi takes ginger steps, while Melsia's voice can be heard in the background asking if he is alright. Our boy literally walks sideways on the steep path because one wrong move and he could be meeting our maker. While he's struggling to move forward, there's Melsia gracefully hopping through the path, and in a maid outfit at that, as expected of a cat-type beastman. She goes ahead and before long she calls out to him again to say she found the mine. Isagi is panting heavily, asking if they're finally there. True to her words, they find themselves in front of the mine's entrance, but judging by its appearance, Isagi comments on how this structure is. Well, that's because this was built a long time ago, which explains why it's deteriorated quite a bit, according to Melsia. Isagi touches the lumber to assess the structure and discovers that the walls and ceiling are made of reinforced clay to prevent collapse. Before doing anything, he asks Melsia for permission to stabilize the damaged area, which she says he can do. Isagi works his alchemy magic on the place and voila, it's sturdier than before. Melsia walks ahead so she can show him the place while Isagi trails behind. She walks bravely in the dark tunnel, and after a few feet of walking inside, Isagi comments that it's way too dark for him there. That's right, he just realized that beastmen have excellent night vision, so now Melsia feels a little sorry since she didn't bring a light for him. Luckily, he came prepared. Isagi unzips his knapsack and procures a tool that works like a lamp. With this, it can help light their path. Melsia offers to hold it up for him so he can focus on finding the minerals, something he couldn't be more thankful for. They walk deeper into the mine, with Isagi pointing out the spots that he believes contain minerals. He taps the wall to inspect the component, and soon enough he discovers something. Right there. There's a large mineral vein nearby. Melsia's more than ready to dig it up, with a pickaxe in hand, but Isagi says there's no need to do that. If alchemy can be used to channel mana and enhance the strength of material, then it can also be used to weaken that material. So if he targets the weak points in its structure, then he can destroy the material. As soon as he said that, the walls lit up, and suddenly ores emerged from the walls and were thrown at their feet. He asks Melsia to help collect the ores, which she does right away. Meanwhile, Isagi continues touching the walls as he passes by them, using alchemy to target the mineral vein and mine the metallic ores like so. He warns Melsia to keep an eye out since the minerals will begin to surface in waves, rolling continuously until she calls for him. Isagi stops midway and just at the right time too. Melsia is worried since the place where he currently stands is about to be filled with minerals. Oh, she's right. For now, the two sort out the extracted mineral, with Isagi assessing them one by one. So far, the extracted materials include iron, copper, lead, and mana-infused minerals. What's more, there are even small amounts of gold and a few gemstones here and there. However, there's no sign of adamantite or mithril. Melsia feels proud of her Isagi-sama, because with his mining skills, she's sure that he'll be one of the most sought-after candidates in many different mining sites. Now that she mentioned it, Isagi says alchemists actually get sent to these kinds of mines, but the conditions there are quite harsh. Technically speaking, it's a form of punishment in the noble world, as he remembers that he often got sent to places like that back then. Anyway, back to the mound of ores before them, Isagi says it's time to extract the minerals. Using alchemy, he sieves the impurities from the matter, producing solid blocks of shining dark mineral. He urges they continue doing so for the rest of the ore, and before long they finally sort the minerals in their polished forms. It's time to go back. They managed to get quite a lot, huh? With these, Isagi says they can create all sorts of things, starting with more golems. He can even enhance their base bodies and make them more useful for farming. But most importantly, they can now finally make that thing. Huh? What thing? Melsia has no idea, so with a smug look he says it's the crafting workshop. Just like that, they're back at his place. The two of them are outside, a few feet away from his house. Isagi explains that he needs to build the workshop carefully because if something goes wrong during the alchemy process, it could destroy the building via an explosion. With that said, he wants a workshop that's separate from his residence. Plus, there's also the fact that while performing alchemy, the process can release substances with strong odors. Well, that makes sense. So now Melsia asks if she can help him with anything when building his workshop. Isagi answers that he can take care of it himself, and instead of the workshop, he'd appreciate it if he could help out in the field since the next harvest is nearing. Melsia did as he suggested, so now, It's Isagi's turn to focus on creating his workshop. First things first, he needs to decide on the size of it. Of course, he has always dreamed of having a big and grand one, but if he did that, it would all come with a bigger responsibility of managing it. As a solution, he decided to scale it down a bit, marking the outline of the structure. Since it's his workshop, he finds there's no need to subdivide the rooms further, so it's a simple workshop with a storage room in it. After careful consideration, he finally decides on the perimeter and size, with the workshop slightly bigger than his home. The materials he'll use for the building consist of Trent wood like the one used in his house, as well as bricks, since they're more durable. So now it's time to make the mortar. He adds cement and sand into a container using a 1:3 ratio, mixing them thoroughly using alchemy. In the middle of the mixture, he digs a hole and slowly pours water in as he continues to mix. He knows the mixture is ready once there are no more lumps, and soon the mortar is finished. Using levitation magic, he lines the brick along the outer wall and applies mortar to the layered bricks to glue them together. He places one brick on top of another, continuously repeating this process until he fills up the whole length of the wall. Looking at his completed work, Isagi is already beaming since the structure looks impressive enough with these alone. Next, he works on the interior, and before long, Melsia has returned to check on his progress. To her surprise, the workshop is already finished. She approaches it, and from the inside, she can hear Isagi saying that the place is like a proper alchemy workshop now. Melsia knocks, asking if she could come in, which Isagi welcomes her to do. He's already moving boxes of his equipment while Melsia marvels at the place. She came just in time because he's in the middle of working on the interior. Melsia comments that it's beautiful both inside and outside, something Isagi is pleased to hear. He starts babbling about how he adjusted the resin ratio to lower the brightness of the wall, thus reducing the glare. This way, it also reflects the light better, which gives the space a softer and warmer color. Oh, he also shares that he wanted to create a more classic feeling, and there are the bricks in the wall too. Melsia smiles and cuts him off mid-sentence to congratulate him for having his own proper alchemy workshop. This just got him more hyped up because now he can do his research freely, leaning close to her face as he said so. The sudden closeness caused Melsia to flush. She turns and asks if she can help him arrange the furniture. It's all hers? Oh, but there is something he'd like. Isagi asks Melsia if it's possible for her to provide a bed for him, but she refuses. Before he can ask, Melsia is already giving him the look, saying if she puts a bed here, then she's pretty sure Isagi will end up sleeping in the workshop. Eh? But he wants to. No can do because Melsia won't budge about this. It just goes to show she really knows Isagi through and through. Well, he was just about to suggest a sofa, but she beat him to it. Sofas are not allowed either. Melsia wags her finger at him, saying he needs to live a healthy lifestyle, which is why he needs to go home and sleep properly. In the end, he can't win against her. So with that, he suggests they start making the fertilizer, which Melsia happily obliges to. In order for them to create a suitable fertilizer for Polmenia village, Isagi and Melsia gathered materials from the forests and mines. Now the time has come for them to use all of these to create the village's very own fertilizer. At the table, they have only three different types of traditional fertilizer available here. Isagi asks her how these perform after the property enhancement process, and Melsia says they fall short compared to the Empire's fertilizers. She shows him a compilation of all the detailed data on the growth process of the fertilizers and products which he assesses. Looking at this information, it's pretty evident that the village's current fertilizers have limitations. With that said, Isagi suggests they combine it with other materials. Melsia asks if that will take a while, especially if they'll start from scratch. No joke, it would take them years, but since they already have data collected from the Empire, it will be much faster. Plus, they also have a pile of high-quality mana stones. Looking at his unlikely enthusiasm, Melsia can't help but ask if the things they got from the monsters in the forest are of really high quality. To give her an example of how valuable it is, Isagi tells her that this single stone can easily sell for 20 silver coins back at the Empire, eh? It's that expensive? Yet here in the village it is only about 1 silver coin. Hearing her say that caused Isagi to drop the stone out of pure shock. But since they're already on the topic of it, he had to ask if these mana stones are practically considered an everyday item here in the village. She tells him yes, and that anyone could find a stone this size in the village. He couldn't believe it. And in the Empire, they're going gaga over this? Anyway, it doesn't matter now, because he'll use these mana stones to the fullest, so he can create the finest fertilizer possible for the land by adding the mana stones to the fertilizer. He asks Melsia to prepare the plant pots for the experiments, while he focuses on doing his thing. Now then, Isagi takes one of the mana stones in his hands to conduct mana adjustment. You see, there's chaotic mana inside the stones, so he needs to stabilize it first to make crafting easier. Using alchemy, he sorts the mana, and as soon as it stabilizes, Isagi removes all the impurities in it. The dark matter is sieved out of the stone, and voila, it's finished! Melsia came just in time with all the pots as she marveled at the pure mana stone in Isagi's hand. Looking at it like this, one cannot deny how beautiful a pure mana stone is. One telltale sign of their purity is if they give off a clear and sparkling violet glow. Isagi even claims that some of the nobles in the empire use mana stones as jewelry. Melsia's eyes widen, gleaming at the mana stone before her. She asks how he plans to use them, and to her dismay, Isagi grinds them mercilessly and without finesse. Well, this is how he adds them to the fertilizer after all. He apologizes to Melsia, seeing how she was so excited about it, only to end up seeing him smashing the stone. She tells him he shouldn't worry about it. After all, those mana stones are just materials. With that, she leaves to get more plant pots for their experiments. She may say all that, but even Isagi can see how disappointed she was at what he did, and she was so happy about those stones too. With that, he made a mental note to make her a piece of jewelry out of those mana stones next time. Now back to his grinding. The thriving grass he puts in adds strong growth factors, while the terraria adds pest resistance. There's also gengida to improve decomposition, plus combining all these with the different materials they gathered from the forest. With that, the experimental fertilizer is complete. Melsia suggests they test it right away, already carrying a plant pot in her hand. They number the pot first, then fill it with soil, followed by the fertilizer he just made and mix it with the former. Melsia sows the enhanced arugula seeds and covers them with soil before watering them. Not a moment later, they see a sprout from the plant, quickly followed by the growth of luscious leaves. Before long, it sprouted even more as both Isagi and Melsia celebrated the plant's incredible growth rate. But wait a minute, isn't it growing too fast? Because now the plant continues to sprout until it's towering over them. Is this thing turning into a beanstalk? Melsia remains amazed at what she's seeing, but isn't it too amazing? Finally, she speaks up and tells Isagi that if they let the plant continue its growth, the walls and ceiling of the workshop could be destroyed. Now that she mentioned it, Isagi realizes the danger and quickly uses his alchemy to make the plant stop growing. It was a bit of a stretch, but he managed to halt its growth. Whew, that was pretty close. His workshop almost got destroyed because of his desire to see how far it would grow. Well, you know what they say. Curiosity killed the cat, but satisfaction brought it back. Melsia never thought the growth rate would be beyond their imagination. But could it be because of the powerful properties of the thriving grass? Isagi says it's possible, but it could also be because of the resonance effect from high-quality magical energy. But if that's the case, then how about removing the magical energy from the mana stones? Isagi considered that idea, and he also noted that they need to select the right mana stones too. As a curious alchemist, he also wants to see the effects of combining different materials to create the optimal fertilizer. Well, from the looks of it, they have no choice but to experiment to get it right. He turns to Melsia with an apologetic gaze, explaining that this task will require all the patience they have, so in the meantime they should continue to do their best. She picks up the plant pot and smiles at him, saying she'll gladly lend a hand. From there, the two of them worked day and night, experimenting with different combinations and variables. One plant grew too big, while another became rotten. For days and even nights the two continued, and they even reached plant pot number 207. While Melsia prepares the pots, Isagi is in his study, redoing calculations and creating formulas that are viable for the village's fertilizer. It may be tiring, but he doesn't feel bad about it. Working alone and quietly improving things like this even reminds him of his time back in the Empire. It's pretty nostalgic in a way. One day, 3 weeks later, the two of them prepare a certain fertilizer mixture. Melsia prepares the bell pepper seeds and they both await in anticipation as she pours water over the pot. By now, they're at pot number 252, and the plant gingerly grows, bears fruit, and finally stops growing at an acceptable height. There are no unusual growths in the stems or leaves, and Melsia confirms that the effects are equal to the Empire-style fertilizer Isagi used before. This only means one thing. In a quiet voice, Isagi says they succeeded. He suddenly grabs the potted plant, tears in his eyes, and raises it above his head. Finally, their 3 weeks of slaving away to get the perfect formula are worth it. Their intense focus on research finally bore fruit, literally. Melsia is more than happy because now that they're able to create fertilizer using only the materials from the village, they don't have to worry about running out of fertilizer anymore. She's right. With this, Isagi claims that the agriculture in the village will be stable. But as soon as he said that, our guy's brows instantly furrowed since it posed a new problem. He's the only alchemist in the village. If something were to happen to him, then production would definitely stop. Well, how about sharing the formula with the other alchemists in town? Melsia says they can ask them to produce it. That's possible, but Isagi points out that they might not be able to replicate it due to a lack of technical expertise. Well, she suggests that maybe he can come up with a formula that's easier to make, right? But all Isagi can think about is how good the other alchemists in town are. Just thinking about all of these instantly put a damper on their once happy mood mere minutes ago. In the end, he tells them they should just forget about this problem for now. They'll cross that bridge when they get there. Just then, Melsia caught a glimpse of the weather outside and saw that it had just stopped raining. Rather than mulling over this, she suggests they take a little walk outside. After all, he's been cooped up in the workshop for the last few weeks, so a bit of light exercise will do him good this time. Well, he can't argue about that. As they were about to exit the workshop, Melsia informed him that the village had changed a lot while he was busy working on the new fertilizer. Huh? Isagi didn't even have the time to ask what she meant because as they walked outside, he saw the beastman had continued his initial work on the crops. Even better, they expanded it as far as his eyes can see. He looks in awe at their work, surprised to see so many fields now. Back when they first arrived a few weeks ago, this place was nothing but grasslands. Melsia says it's thanks to him that they were able to do this, because he shared the improved crop seeds with them. That may be so, but Isagi points out that to reach this much progress in just 3 weeks is really impressive. Melsia turns to him saying everyone is happy to see the plants bearing fruit continuously, and that everyone has been exerting their full efforts. Just then, one of the beastmen notices Isagi and calls out to him. The others followed suit, calling out to our guy happily as they rushed over to him, smiling. They tell Isagi that it's thanks to him they were able to grow crops, expressing fervent gratitude as they do so. This sudden influx of attention got him flustered, because for him it's no big deal. He's really just happy to help out. The beastmen show him their produce, like this one tomato that's so vibrant and plump. There's also this cucumber too, until Melsia steps in and says the produce is like that, because her Isagi-sama made them exactly like that. So is this the equivalent of God creating an image according to his likeness? This brag of hers led to a pregnant pause before everyone agreed. This is all the work of Isagi. Even they can't argue with that. One of the female beastmen approaches Isagi with a crate of tomatoes, handing it to him as thanks for the great harvest they just had. Naturally, Isagi accepts it, a little frantic as the other beastmen follow and start to hand him their produce as well, ranging from cucumbers to eggplants. Melsia suggests they use the ingredients everyone gave them to cook tonight's dinner, and she couldn't have suggested a better idea. It's going to be a grand feast tonight. With all these crates of produce at his feet and the field thriving, Isagi notes that it truly is a wonderful day for a walk. Meanwhile, somewhere else in the village, an unfamiliar beastman appears, amazed at how this once remote village is alive and kicking. Not too long ago, she remembers this place was practically a grassland. But now, it's a farmland as far as the eye can see. This little female beastman with a knapsack much larger than her stares in awe at the current Pulminia village. That is the end of the recap at Chapter 7. Please read the pinned comment about the next part.